be able to ask us questions, actually. So I'm going to start the broadcast. I'm Michael Santos with Prison Professors, and today I have my friend and colleague Sam Mangel also on the program. It's actually 6:15 in the morning here in California. I've been working for a couple of hours, and I got a phone call from Sam, who works with white collar advice. And what Sam does is offer really expert guidance. I would call him a mitigation expert. So he helps people along with Justin's team who are facing challenges with the criminal justice system. And sometimes those people are really struggling. Sam, why don't you tell us a little bit about the reason why you called this morning and what type of challenge you faced?
I received a call from a friend of someone who was caught up in the PPP situation. And he's an attorney. He's about 46 years old, married 20 some odd years, a son 16 years old. I called him, introduced myself, and started having a conversation about what we do, how we could help him. He hadn't yet chosen an attorney. Justin and I had a phone call with him, and we were planning on speaking again this afternoon about what the next step might be. This morning, I received a phone call from him, and he's been somewhat, I must say, despondent over the past two calls I've had with him, and making some insinuations about alternative ways to handle this that I had never encountered before. This morning, he called me and said, I think I have to take another way out. And I kind of thought I knew what he was referring to, but I wasn't quite sure. And he said, I spoke to my wife. I have a life insurance policy. It's past suicide and contestability. I'm going to take that way out. And I really got offended. And I said, you have a 16-year-old son. You're married 20 years. How could you be so selfish? I don't care how bad you think the situation is. If you're potentially going, to have to go to prison for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it doesn't matter. You're still going to see your family weekly. You're still going to talk to them daily. You're still going to be able to go to your son's high school and college graduation. How could you be so selfish to think that removing yourself from the situation is the easy way out? And he just started to whine and complain. And my thought at that point was, I don't think I can work with you. Anybody that even has, everybody might have, those thoughts might be common in the turmoil of being a defendant. I get it. I was there. That be so serious, though, is what concerned me.
Well, let's talk about how we respond to people at that stage of the journey, because the reality that I think many people experience is suicide seems like an easy way out, but that suicide is really predicated on this fear of the unknown. They don't know what they're facing. They don't know what's coming. And they are really struggling with the shame, the humiliation, the unrealistic expectations about what this is going to do. And what they really need at this stage, Sam, is probably hope. If we can give them hope, we give them, uh, we start to let them start contemplating something else, number one. But in addition to hope, we've got to give them a workable path. Any of us at any time can feel down and despondent at any time. There are many people in society, many that don't have any problems with the criminal justice system, but life just seems to feel as if it has no meaning, no relevance. And we've got to figure out a way how to build it.
Well,
So
let me take a step back. Yesterday, I spent over an hour and a half on the phone with him, showing him that there is a end to this. There is a future. That the future is not so bad that one would consider doing what he was considering. I went through my experience with him at length, and tried to explain to him that as bad as it might seem, you will get through this. Your family will get through this. It's a momentary blip in time. And yes, it's a hiccup that we've had and we have to live with, but that doesn't mean that we have to live with the stigma ourselves the rest of our lives and can't use this as a stepping stone to something better. For an hour and a half, I went over this with him and thought I really got to the point that you're saying.
but wait a second. It's what part of the country does this person live in?
New Jersey.
So in New Jersey, he could do some work. You could give him a task that's going to help him. And one of the things that I used to do, and I was in that situation, and you were in that
Okay.
situation, but I used to find a task, something that I could do, that it's a little step that just helps to open my eyes. And it started for me when I was locked into county jail, facing life in prison. I didn't know what was going to happen. I was just facing life in prison. And it used to be so terrifying to me that I would have a biological reaction. My body broke out in boils because I was 23 years old and I was locked in a cell, and I worried, is this going to be the rest of my life? And I had no way of knowing. But what helped me enormously was doing a task, doing something. So he's in New Jersey. A task that he could take that might help him on this pathway to restoring hope, not just giving him this picture that it's going to be over, but a task, and say, here's what, you might tell him this is what other people have done, but here is a task. You still have access to the internet. You're not in prison yet. Why don't you Google right now 10 people that went into the criminal justice system, 10 people, and write a paragraph on each of those 10 people, and let's talk about what happened to those people. And you're going to find 10 people. And if he does that type of a Google search, this is just a simple task that comes to me off the top of my head. Okay. He's going to see people that are in far worse situation than him. And those people responded in a different way. What if we respond, if we don't recognize there's something I can do? Because once he does that, then you can start turning that into a case study and say, well, what happened there? What were the steps that he took? Have him figure these things out. But all of a sudden he's working. And when he's working, is going to say, well, maybe I need to get to the next step. That's what I had to do when I was in that situation. I used to go and read, okay, what's next? What's going to happen here? Because we don't know. I don't know what a pre-sentence investigation is. I don't know what a sentencing hearing is because I've never been in the situation. I don't know what it's going to be like in prison once I get there. I don't know that there are different security levels in prison. I don't know what accomplishments I can make in prison. I don't know how I can get out of prison. I don't know how I can resurrect my career when I come out of prison. But that's the expertise that you can provide that person. And when you provide that person, first of all, the message of this is what's coming, but also the task. Get him involved in the work. Because if he starts doing something, he becomes vested in his own life. And the reality is that nobody is going to work harder for mental health and for overcoming struggle than the person himself. And you can't save everybody. That's just
Right.
a reality. A person has to want to change his life. But he reached out to you. Is that how he contacted you? He
Yeah.
reached out to you?
Well, I reached out to him initially, and I really like him. I really enjoy talking to him. He's a very intelligent person and well spoken, but he seems to get into these doldrums every now and then, and almost like woe is me, and it's the easy way out. And I just wanted to shake him and say, "Stop! There's light at the end of the tunnel."
Remind him though of other things that happened to him. For example, how old is he? Did you say?
And I'm 45, 46.
So he's 45 years old. That means that 30 years ago he was 15 years old. Remind him of how tough things were when he was 15 and he was thinking about going to college and then going to law school. Okay.
Right.
Those were tough things to overcome. But he figured out a way that if I can just get through chemistry and get an A, my GPA is going to go up to here. And if I just get through high school with good grades, I'm going to get a scholarship into Princeton or into Georgetown or wherever he goes to undergrad school. And then if he does well in Georgetown, he knows, okay, now I'll get into law school. And it was all these little tasks. And it's the same thing that he has to go through now. First of all, he has to figure out, how do I get from where I am to the next stage? Because I can't jump 3 or 4 stages. I can't jump from, oh my God, I'm scared of going to prison, to, oh wow, I'm architecting my plan on how I'm going to resurrect my career when I get out of prison. I can't do that unless I do these little tasks.
Mhm.
Okay. And those little tasks require work. And that work is, and then you should, I would always try to teach through questioning. For example, could we role play a little bit here, Sam?
Sure.
So I
Well, let me
want
just
you
throw
to
out
be that
one.
guy,
Go
and I
ahead.
want to be you. Okay.
Yes.
So here's the role playing. So you'd mentioned that you have life insurance policy. Tell me about that.
I have a policy. It's paid up, no contestability period. So if something happens to me, my family gets it. And my main concern right now is my wife. She's never worked a day in her life. I don't know how they're going to survive with me not home.
Are you aware that suicide nullifies or voids insurance policies?
If it's after the first 2 years, it doesn't void it. I've already done my research on that.
And you're comfortable that if this is going to solve everybody's problem, if your family gets this money and you're not here?
Yes, at this point, my only concern is that my family won't have the money to survive. My wife has never worked a day in her life, and this is the only way I can provide for my family.
Can I ask you some personal questions about your financial situation?
Sure.
What was the highest earning year you've ever had?
I made in the low six figures.
Pardon?
I made in the low six figures
Routinely?
routinely.
What was the lowest amount of money that you've ever earned annually since you were a lawyer?
Probably 40,000 a year.
And what do you think it takes your family to be able to live annually?
I would say pretty close to what I've earned, maybe 100, 150,000 a year.
Were you able to save money on your income?
Absolutely.
How much is your savings right now?
I have enough put away to afford a lawyer and for my family to get by, assuming the lawyer's not too expensive.
What do you think the exposure is for your crime?
My attorney, who right now I'm talking to a public defender, said it could be as high as 7 years.
And did he tell you what it could be as low as?
No, he's saying that almost a doom and gloom, that it's going to be 7 years and I have no other options.
What is the amount of loss in your alleged offense?
I'm not sure, but it's over $1 million.
So have you looked at other people that have had $1 million in loss and saw what the exposure they have had?
No, I've done no research on any other person in my situation.
What do you know about sentence mitigation?
Absolutely nothing other than what I've read.
If you could architect a plan that instead of doing 7 years, you might do 18 months, would that be preferable to suicide?
Yes, of course it would. I just don't know how I could get there.
Did you know how you could earn 6 figures a year when you were 15 years old?
No.
Did you take some methodical steps that would help you get there?
Sure. I
Did you
prepared for my career.
did you know how you were going to get a job as a lawyer when you were 17 years old?
No,
Did you have to take some methodical steps to get there?
absolutely.
Was it worth it to take those methodical steps?
Absolutely it was.
Was there any sense of relief or fulfillment that came every time you went through an incremental goal?
Sure. Every time I hit a milestone, I was proud of myself.
Tell me about some of the milestones that you hit while
Well,
you
when
were.
I
Yeah.
graduated law school, I went to a tremendous law school. I graduated towards the top of my class. I opened up my own practice. I got married. I have an extremely intelligent 16-year-old son who is literally at the top of his class, probably going to graduate summa cum laude. So those are some of the accomplishments up until I made the mistake that I made.
So what we're doing, Sam, is you're just asking these questions and he's starting to realize, oh, that's right. I did face hurdles before. I did these things before and I got my strength back. And you get him saying these things. And then you say, now I'm going to give you a task. Okay. And you give him these tasks to start working. And when he starts working, he starts building confidence again. He starts realizing, wait a minute. I can control my destiny. I am maybe 45 years old, but I could put this behind me by the time I'm 49 years old.
Right.
And you can give him examples. I made it. I have pathways and stories of people personally, myself, but other people as well that did not lose everything while they were in prison. Instead, they found ways to recalibrate and make money while they were in prison and position themselves for a new career while they're in prison. But it's this sense of hopelessness that everything is going to go away that sends people into this tailspin. As soon as somebody starts to see that they can build a life of meaning and relevance and dignity, they start to remember, oh, yes, this is not the first time that I faced a hurdle. And I've met many people who faced hurdle, but have emerged incredibly strong with their dignity intact, with opportunities to prosper. Their families became proud of them. We have a responsibility and a duty to show them how. That's why they reach out to us. But we can only show them the path. They have to want to walk the path.
Right.
If they want to walk the path, we can give them the tools, the resources, the guidance to get there. And that's why people hire you, and they can do that, or they can get the free information just by watching our YouTube channels and reading our books, which they can get for free, or they can give you an email, sam@whitecollaradvice.com. They can talk with you, and you can be their coach and their guide and help them understand what steps they can take to prepare for a life of meaning and relevance and dignity, even while they're going through struggle. And that's where I think you offer enormous value, because you've been there, you've done it, you've worked with other people who have done it, and you can always reach out to me and I'll give you, hey, this is how I got through 26 years in prison, every day motivated, every day committed to building a inventory resources that will help other people reach highest potential. That's how I would talk to people. And I would recommend that as soon as we conclude this video, you send your guy a link and to the video, let him watch the video, let him know that he could watch all the videos on our channel, and that will show him there's always a pathway through struggle. But it begins by you asking him these types of Socratic questions, the same types of Socratic questions his law professor used to ask when he didn't know how to do what he later became an expert at doing. And he can become an expert again. And there's enormous fulfillment that comes in helping other people reach their highest potential. I know you're really good at that. And I know that you can help him.
Look, I said to him, and I talked to other people, I remember the day I was sentenced to 60 months. My stomach dropped. I thought my life was going to be for the next 4 years plus in prison. And I realized that there were ways, once I got there, to continue to mitigate it. And that's why I only served 22 months of that. And when I tell people that story, I wish I had known at the time that there were ways and methods to make your life much different than what you thought it would be or thought it was. And it's a clear, a way to try to explain to people that there is a path forward and it's not all doom and gloom.
Well, people are very fortunate to be able to access information because they have access to the internet, they have access to YouTube. When I went to prison in 1987, none of these resources existed. And of course, I was locked in a prison cell, so I didn't even have access to it anyway. And I got a lot of bad information, but they're going to get good information from you. And I hope that this person finds some hope and some inspiration in this video. And I hope that he makes the right decision on behalf of his family and on behalf of society, that instead of taking that pathway to solving the problem in a very myopic way of not realizing, oh, this is short-sighted solution, but there are long-term consequences for this son that he cares so much about, and this wife who has stood by him for 20 years. And I know that you can help him, and I hope you guys move forward together.
Michael, thank you as always.
All right, boss. Thank you.
Bye-bye. You got it.